the stoic pilgrim of Mysteria strides into the classic constructed metagame and stakes his claim as one of the best heroes in the format. Beneath his serene temperament lies the boundless power of the tiger. And in order to harness his power for ourselves, I sat down with McInnis, winner of ProQuest Plus at DreamHack Dallas, on the very weekend that ZEN released. Matt, congratulations on winning this past weekend. You're one of the first people to actually put points on the board for ZEN. Does that feel like special in any way, shape, or form to you?
Yeah, it feels great. It feels amazing. I'm really happy to be one of the first people to do it. I think he's a really strong hero, and I think he could go pretty quick, so get your points in while you can.
That's true. You're not wrong. I think there's a lot of people that are really looking at him for a lot of these upcoming nationals tournaments, and perhaps even down the line, depending on how he performs. But you mentioned he's a strong hero. So what are your thoughts then on the strengths of the hero? Where do you think he is strongest?
I think Zen is really good and really strong in the fact that he does a lot of really small and really wide attacks, especially with his hero power to make crouching tigers. Every time you can swing for 2 or 1, they're really good because you're less than a normal card is worth, while still being a lot of pressure and a lot of damage at your opponent.
He kind of improves or really is pulling players towards this aggressive go wide play style then.
Yep, absolutely. He's also really good at deck searching for specific combo cards.
And so as far as the type of player that would want to play ZEN, I'm considering players that really like aggressive strategies, that like to put damage on the board, that like to threaten your opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who plays red and magic or red green, really aggressive decks, would absolutely love to play Zen.
Let's talk about the deck construction. You said he's a hero that likes to deck search and pull combo cards, very similar to Katsu. As far as the philosophy of this deck and the construction, go into a little bit of that. What were you thinking when you were building something like this?
When I started looking at Zen, I was looking at Descendant Gustwave and Bonds of Ancestry,
right?
Because they're just some of the strongest ninja cards in the game. So initially I was looking at a list that had 9 of each, and I just wanted to abuse the value of Bonds of Ancestry, essentially drawing you an extra card every turn whenever you played them. But it felt a bit lacking in direction and power, having to play so many yellows in the deck. And so I decided to pivot to a list that kind of included some tigers.
Sure.
And I wasn't getting the most success, but I have to think putting Tam, he put out a list that he played, and then now this is the list that I ended up settling on for the ProQuest Plus this last weekend for both days. And it's kind of just trying to do the biggest value and the biggest damage you could do every turn.
Yeah. And you mentioned Pudding when he released his version of the Bonds list that I think was originally sort of popularized by We Make Best. Everyone kind of jumped on and looked at Bonds and looked at Descendant and just said, well, this is absurd. This is the way to go. The cool thing about this list, and the cool thing about, I think, ZEN in general, is that he can be very successful in a configuration kind of like this one. And he can be very successful by moving around a lot of these cards. But specifically within this build, are there any cards besides perhaps Bonds and Descendant that stick out to you as this is why we run this version?
Chase the Tail and Aspect of Tiger Body are 2 of the strongest cards in the deck because they work so well together. Chase the Tail's a 1-drop that swings for 4. If you played a tiger, this gets go again, and your next tiger gets +3 power. And the Aspect of Tiger Body just checks to see if a red was played before it to give it go again and make that second tiger.
Yeah.
So you can have a blue card, a tiger from, say, the boots of the deck, the Chase the Tail, and the Aspect of Tiger Body, and you're looking at pushing upwards of 13 damage on a 3-card hand there, which is just crazy strong, and it can even get bigger if you still have some of your other equipment and an extra card.
Which is a good point, because I think a lot of people think of this deck as basically sort of like an Art of War waiting room deck. Once you get Art of War, then you get to play the game. Or even, as you go a little bit deeper, it's just like a Chi waiting room. Once you have Chi, you can finally pop off thanks to the equipment and his hero ability. But I think even past that, cards that just get value off of Crouching Tigers even Breed Anger, for example, just
Hmm.
cards that get value allow you to put down damage on the board in ways that you would perhaps underestimate. And I think that that line of having a blue being able to pitch into Tiger Taming Kakara, into like a Tiger from the boots, and to Chase the Tail into Aspect of Tiger Body, like that's really good value and
Hmm.
good damage, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of damage. It just pushes so much for so few cards, and that's how an aggro deck wins in this game, by doing more damage than you normally would do.
Speaking of equipment, let's go through really quickly on the equipment. Obviously, Strides of Reprisal is something that we mentioned already. I have been so blown away by this card, by how good it is. It just feels like almost a strict upgrade to Crouching, or to Snapdragon Scalers, because it creates
Yeah.
Crouching Tiger. Would you agree on that front?
Yes, this card's absolutely one of the strongest cards. I think you could start to see this card being played in Katsu even, just as when I find an Art of
Mm.
War, I can block with this, and then I don't have to truly banish a card to Art of War, and you just start to have an insane turn that way. I think also it plays deeper into even those Crouching Tiger heavy decks. This one might not be that deep, but those decks can just go crazy with one extra Tiger at points.
Yeah. And if you ever needed, I guess you could block for one, but the fact that you're getting a
Yeah,
Tiger's so much more value than I think it is on the face of it.
yeah.
The Tiger Stripe Shuko makes so much sense because obviously we're playing for like low attacks and super wide chains. And the fact that it blocks for 2 is great. But talk to me about Traverse the Universe, because this is one that when people saw this come out, they were like, cool, it gets you an inner chi, but I think it means so much more than that in this deck specifically.
I think Traverse the Universe might be the best card in Classic Constructed at the moment. The amount of damage and the level of play, like the amount of plays that you can make and the level of those plays goes so much exponentially higher with Traverse the Universe. It blows everything out of the water, being able to have sometimes upwards of 7 card hands if you have an Arsenal, the Chi from Traverse, and the Tiger from Stride.
And it does so much for this deck because any chi on any turn basically just represents, through the hero ability, another a card in hand and a card in banish. Like the card in hand is a Crouching Tiger, which could be 1 or it could be 4, depending on what you play, in sequence. But then the card in the banish zone that you can tap into is really any of these combo cards, which actually brings me to the next kind of point. As far as combo cards are concerned, what combo cards here are we running? Looks like we got Aspect of Tiger Body, Breed Anger, um,
Yep.
got Chase the Tail, Mauling Chi or Key, Tiger Swipe. Why Spinning Wheel Kick? A lot of people are playing Spinning Wheel Kick.
It's kind of just a value card. Sometimes you'll do the math of your turn and realize, oh, I have an extra resource. So I could grab a spinning wheel kick instead of 100 wins and just get 1 extra damage since I have an extra resource.
Yeah.
This kind of harkens back to 12 Petal, which I don't think we touched on, but is, I think, also one of the strongest equipment in the deck. If you just like have 2 of these blue Transcend cards, you can have 2 extra resources in a turn, so you can start to push an extra point or 2 of damage.
And there's a lot of combo cards in this version of the list. Also want to touch on the Singular Key Unleashed. What's your thought process behind that?
I kind of just wanted to try something where, like, if I have an excess of blues, it's the biggest turn finisher that there is. But quite often, the math of it doesn't line up because it's a 2-drop.
That is something that I found pretty quickly on, is that Key Unleashed feels really good if you can land it, but more often than not, it costs a lot to actually invest into it. And sometimes you're just giving a full card to play this for, like 1 point of value or something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that much different than having the card in hand. But all of this feeds into Ancestral Harmony. How do you feel about Ancestral Harmony as a card, both in this list but in general?
I think this card has a lot of really high highs, but not that many low lows. This card sometimes is just +1 to 3 or 4 attacks. Sometimes it's that plus add 100 wins, or add a spinning wheel kick to your turn, and you can just go really wide while also still swinging 4, 5, 4, 3, 2 damage in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And it just does crazy turns.
This to me is just one of those interesting cards that on the face of it, it seems like pretty innocuous, but I would argue that it's almost maybe it's better than Art of War in certain scenarios because it can draw you that extra attack. but it just has the capacity to push so much extra damage with this specific type of list. And we've seen
Mhm.
this card kind of make its way into just about every ninja at this point. And in certain lists, I don't think it hits as many times on the combo, but in your version of it, it's got to hit a ton, right?
Yeah, I think I have 30 combo cards or 33-ish. It's very likely to hit. 33 is the number that I believe.
Yeah, that is so successful in this version of the list. As far
Mhm.
as the blues are concerned, I mean, we could talk about Art of War, all day, but I think everybody knows Art of War is an incredibly powerful card that really kind of makes the deck sing. But the blue side of things, uh, what is your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the Transcend cards? Are you playing all of them? I haven't
Yep.
counted yet.
I'm playing all 9 of them. I think they're some of the strongest cards, but I think it also makes for one of the funniest aggro decks in any card game ever. It's just full of resource cards because those resource cards just provide so many powerful things that you can do. You just play one with an Ancestral Harmony, like that we talked about, and they just transcend immediately. You can use your hero power to get that tiger, to get, say, a Descendant Gust Wave, and then you're just starting a really wide turn.
What are your thoughts on Orihan of the Mystic Tenants? Because this is a card that some people included pretty early on, and then I think has sort of dropped away as people have experimented with the deck. But you're on it. Do you like that card? Has that felt pretty good to you?
Yeah, I think 12 Petal makes this
Mm-hmm.
card really strong. It
Yep.
can when you do the transcend, you gain that extra resource, and then I pitch that chi card that I just transcended to it, and I'm essentially getting rid of the Orihan and the chi to draw 3, so I'm like going +1 on card advantage, which is
Mm-hmm.
also gonna create really wide turns.
It does add an extra non-block to the deck, but I feel like the interesting part is like I feel there's always like these higher level players that worry about adding non-blocks to the deck because they want to be flexible. But in a deck that is already sort of incentivized not to block to keep all your
Mhm,
cards, I feel like it doesn't perhaps matter as much. Would
mhm.
you agree on that front, or do you have a different take?
Nope, I think you're pretty close there. Like, there's quite often where I'm just like, "Yep, I'll take your 6 damage, I'll take your 7 damage,
Right.
here's me trying to do 20 or more." But there's still some card choices in the deck where you do think about that quite often. If you look in the reds, Tiger Form Incantation, there's another card, Harmony of the Hunt. They do
Mm-hmm.
theoretically the same thing. One's an attack, this one's a non-attack, but it ends up blocking 3. So there's more scenarios where I decided to play it over the attack.
I can understand that. Yeah, and I actually very much like this card. I've messed around with weird versions of Zen that run a ton of these cards because it's
Mhm,
trying to do some weird stuff with tigers. But I very much like this card. I feel like a
oh,
lot
yeah.
of players are starting to include it in their list because it just feels like a really solid uh, linchpin card, or I guess glue card that gives you a tiger more often than not so that you can set up
Mhm.
some of these combo turns. We didn't touch on it, but it's one of my favorites actually.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and I think finally, Levels of Enlightenment. How do you feel like that card plays in Zen? Because I think it plays to varying degrees in all the heroes.
I think it's the absolute strongest in Zen.
I
Your
agree.
hero power allows you to at least get it to 2 modes, but then with cards like Art of War, your staff, and some of these one cost combo cards, you can very quickly on a really wide turn have all 3 modes active and swing this for 5 or 6 or even 7 with multiple Art of Wars with the go again and while drawing a card. I don't know why this card was printed, but man, do I love playing with it.
It is so good, and specifically Zen. I feel like it has good placement in Enigma as well because she has so many
Mhm.
opportunities to pitch like blues and things like that. But in Zen, it
Yeah.
feels like it really, really pops off.
Oh, yeah. I think it's so strong. It might be one of the best cards in the set, behind Traverse, probably.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Hey, let's quickly talk about the sideboard here. You've built out a
Yeah.
sideboard that has some familiar faces in it, like Command and Conquer and things like that. Talk to me about what each of these use cases are.
Yeah. Command and Conquer it's a 6 power card for popping cards against Prism. It may not be 7 like we might need now, but it still has a lot of good use cases there. It's also still just Command and Conquer,
Yep.
one of the most powerful cards in the game. Playing it into Azalea to blow up their arsenal is really strong, or playing it into decks like Victor or Bravo who want to use defense reactions but they can't.
Feels
Take some
good.
damage.
Yeah.
Flick Flack, this is a card I've been testing out and trying a lot. I'm playing it into the mirror matchup of Zen and into KO because it just lets you block a lot of damage in some value to try and extend the game an extra turn or two for yourself.
Oh, interesting. So you're actually citing this into some matchups that would be more traditionally considered sort of like an aggro race.
Yeah. The weakest link, this card is really fun. I'm not playing it where you think I might be, where most people go, oh, this is for the mirror matchup to take their chi cards. I'm not playing it there. I'm mainly playing this into KO at the moment.
Right.
And since it's a 6 power card, I'm playing it into Prism.
Yep.
Using it as a popper is pretty good, but also you could hit them, and if they're stuck with a Figment or an Aura in their hand, they just lose it. And then you draw a card, so it's kind of like Snatch.
Yeah, that feels quite nice in that matchup specifically. Would you ever side this into the mirror match just for the possibility, or really into any of the sort of 3 heroes that would run a lot of instants?
So I do play it into Enigma. I think it's really strong into that matchup because that deck is like half no blocks because of all their instants.
Right.
I think I could play it into Zen, but I think it just ends up being wrong because aside from Flick Flack, I just want to play my really good combo cards, my really good go wide cards, and you don't often have room for a 2 power or a 2 cost 6 power card.
As far as Cosmic Awakening is concerned, one of my favorite cards from the set, but then again, I got to spoil it. You're running exactly 1 copy, which is something I haven't seen Zens do yet, but I think just about every Mystic hero should possibly consider doing.
I am very back and forth on this card. I'm currently not loving it as much, but it has really good use cases into decks like New, where they want to play all of your blues and they want to do things. So my idea behind it was I'm going to play this in case I see news, and I'm just going to take out my levels and my Orion to slot this in because they can't play it. But also sometimes into decks like Victor or Bravo or any of these really fatigued decks like Decimator Axe Warriors, it's sometimes just a 20 damage.
Yep.
Good luck dealing with it. It's a big card.
Yeah, exactly. I love this card for exactly the fatigue like state that I think certain heroes are trying to push, and against a deck that, especially with one that's constructed with Descendant and with Bonds, you're going to burn through your deck by banishing cards from it off of these triggers. You are pushing yourself to a fatigue state that is making Cosmic Awakening almost easier to get to. And I, for one, think it's just a fantastic inclusion. I'm curious to see if it has play into like the Enigmas of the world over the course of like these super long grindy games, because I feel like there's a chance that we could see this card become a little bit more prominent in overall matchups. And then
yeah, definitely.
I think this one, Snag has become, we talked about this before we started recording. Snag has almost become a mainstay in certain decks. Where are you running it?
Right now, I'm only running this card into New. That is one of the 2 matchups that I'm scared of, and I just do not want them to go Venom Strike, play the Fang Strike off of it, and then do another reaction, and now their card is like 13 power when it was like 2.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ruh-roh, they're going to destroy my hand, they're going to destroy my arsenal. I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm going to lose half my cards.
Yep, New does new things, and Snag certainly stops that in its tracks. I have had many a Snag played against me while playing New, and then I would imagine that you have Tide Flippers and Null Rune for the Arcane Barrier for Kano, and then Spellfray for Spell Void 1. Seems pretty solid as well, yeah.
Yep. Null Rune Gloves is a big sticking point into Rune Blade. Most people would just slot in Tide Flippers, but you actually don't want Tide Flippers into Rune Blade because you want to be able to block with your boots to make the Tiger.
Yeah.
Which to enable a really big turn. So that's why it's Null Rune Gloves primarily over Tide Flippers.
Yeah, I could buy that. I've seen some lists doing AB3 as well. Have you given any consideration to Arcane Barrier 3 with the amount of blues that you run?
I have. I've tried Arcane Barrier 1, 2, 3, Spell Void 1, Spell Void 2, even Spell Void 3. I settled on Arcane Barrier 2 and Spell Void 1 because it just seemed the best going into Kano in the weekend. I found a lot of times where I only need to stop their Wildfire for 3 damage, and then their turn's usually just over from there.
Yeah.
And I still want to have a couple resources to be able to play a 1-drop or a couple 1-drops after they try and go off to make sure I can secure the kill.
Yeah, I could see that. I feel like he's perhaps the best positioned out of all ninjas to actually deal with a Kano compared to something like a Katsu or a Phi. But you touched on it a little bit as we did sideboards. Matchup wise, Zen feels good into what heroes, would you say?
Everything that is not Azalea or new.
Feels good into everything.
I feel really good into everything in the meta. I think this could be the best deck coming up, while also still being one of the simplest to pilot.
I could see it feels like KO almost, like how KO came out in heavy hitters and felt like a solid pickup, one that you could pick up pretty easily, but also put out a lot of power.
Yeah, KO is a bit linear though, where Zen has a lot of avenues that you could take him. You could go really deep into the Tiger stuff, really deep into bonds, or some hybrid like this.
All good into all those heroes. And then tell me again, which heroes do you worry about?
So I'm a bit worried about new. Like I said, she can just do a lot of disruptive things, play like a Leave No Witnesses one turn and react it, and then I lose my arsenal, and then I might lose a really good combo card from the top of my deck, or a Surgical Extraction, or any of these new stealth cards. They can just disrupt so many different things that you can do, or Bonds of Agony. They just like rip cards out of your hand and from your deck, and then it's like, oh no, there goes all my bonds, all my descendants. What do I do?
And then you also mentioned Azalea, right?
Yeah, Azalea is horrifying. I'll recall a game from this last weekend where I played into a person named, I think their name was Evan Ford, on the second day, Sunday. He was my round 5 opponent, where he played 7 red in the ledgers in 8 turns. And I absolutely just wanted to walk away because I couldn't play the game.
That's Azalea, man.
Red in the ledger is so scary. It's so strong. That's why I'm playing cards like Mauling Chi and Command and Conquer into that matchup, so that I can just have like try and push 5 or 6 damage on those turns where I'm stuck doing only one thing.
As a huge Kasai player, I am very well versed in the Kasai versus Azalea matchup, and that is actually just the prevailing strategy in my mind. Whenever they hit you with red in the ledger, just have a Command and Conquer or a Nourishing Emptiness or a 1 for 5 and call it a day, because that's probably the best line you can take. Matt, thank you for breaking this down with us. We talked a lot about the hero strengths, a lot about the matchups. If you want more information, we're about to go into a couple of cards that Matt has his eye on as far as what to change as this deck list sort of evolves. So if you want to hit that up, head over to the Patreon for a nice little side video as well. But let's go ahead and jump into some sample hands and see how this deck plays out. I should put you as Zen. That would actually be hilarious. Just a tiny you just right in the center.
If we weren't activating Zen so much, I think that'd be hilarious.
That would be the best. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of these hands. Why don't you walk us through your thought process?
Yeah, so Zen is really interesting, especially whenever you start to see Bonds of Ancestry in your hand. You need to start to see what you have in your graveyard, which we don't have anything yet. So this might be a pretty good setup turn, trying to do a little bit, maybe put a Chi or 2 in your deck for your Traverse and get that Art of War in the arsenal.
Sure. So as far as what we want to do, do we want to double play these since they're both capable to do that?
Yep, I think we just want to play both of our Transcend cards. The beautiful thing about them is you can play one, hold priority, and play the other one.
Right.
And we almost always gain our resource from 12 Petal.
Cool.
The only times that we don't really is if we're doing the math for levels of enlightenment to get 3 blues pitched.
Yeah, makes tons of sense there. Cool. Now we have that. What do you want to do from this point? Because we could activate Zen, but we, like you mentioned, we do want to kind of tuck this into the arsenal here.
Yeah, I think we want to save this Art of War for a 5-card hand. So I think we could go Zen, and it won't be for as much value, but I think we should still get a red Descendant Gustwave here.
Okay, so let's find a red Descendant Gustwave. There's one.
And we're just going to do a bunch of damage here. We'll just play we'll swing with our staff first, just to start out with something small, make our opponent think about it normally. And then after that, it's going to be the Tiger in our hand.
Okay. Tiger comes for 1 because of the Tiger Taming Kakara, which, by the way, I think some people thought that this was a win it hits, but it's just a straight up win it attacks. So if you're like playing and you're picking the deck up for the first time, don't forget, the moment you attack with this, you just get to give this +1.
Yep, it just is. It's just a 2 resources for 3 damage. It's very strong for a weapon.
Yeah, I agree.
I think now we're just playing this Descendant Gustwave, pitching this Chi.
Okay, sounds good.
We're going to play the Bonds of Ancestry, and we're just going to look to arsenal this Art of War.
Sounds like a plan. Moving
that
all
turn
the
was
way. There we
That
go.
turn was pretty good from us. It only used 3 cards that we had. It pushed 10 damage, and it also healed us for 1, where a lot of people aren't counting that like 1 point of value that you gain from the Transcend cards.
That's true, yeah. And we do have access now to Traverse as a blocking card, which can go and get us one of those chi, which is one of the best parts about finding chi early, right?
Yeah, and I think we're absolutely just going to block with it and the boots here and just show a really big turn.
And we can assume that if we're playing against any normal matchup, there could be just no blocks on this turn, but
Yeah.
we have capacity to do a lot of very powerful things. So throwing that in front.
I think quite often I just want to do this big 7-card hand the moment I can.
Oh, that's good to know.
I just want to hit them. I want to hit them and get this game over with. Because when you can increase the life total gap between you and your opponent, you have a lot of turns where you can just take some of their damage just to keep pushing harder.
Okay, so we've set ourselves up with just a casual 7-card hand, counting the arsenal. Zen doing Zen things. How do you want to start this turn off? Walk us through the entirety of the thing.
So we're going to just start with our Art of War, and we're going to use the chi for it.
Okay.
I know some people want to save the chi for the hero power, but we're just going to use it for resources and hope we draw another blue or 2.
Okay.
We're going to buff our attacks, and we're going to banish this tiger to draw 2 cards.
Okay, sounds good. Banishing the tiger, drawing 2.
We didn't hit a blue, but we can still go really wide and really strong with this turn. So a lot of our cards in our hand, 4 of them, need to start with a tiger that we don't have. But we have an aspect of tiger body. So we can start with a spinning wheel kick and then play the aspect after it.
All right, let's do that. So spinning wheel kick's now going to get buffed, come for 5 with go again.
Yep.
And then following that up with aspect of tiger to get a crouching tiger, yeah?
Yep. Spinning wheel is just a good red go again, and then aspect needs a red card right before it to make a tiger and banish for us. So it's perfect for us.
Okay.
Now all of our cards need tigers. So we'll start with the crouching tiger here.
Okay.
And then I think our next best card to play is going to be the breed anger.
Right, because when this goes, now it gives us a crouching tiger and our banish to chain together.
Yep. And it needs a tiger to gain go again also.
That is correct. So we got that. Now what?
Now we'll just look to play the next tiger.
Shuko buff. You gotta love Shuko buff, right?
It's so good, especially with a new illusionist in the format.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's a pretty good one. So that consumes the tiger, and now we have some choices here. Tiger swipe is free. Chase the tail cost 1, and Mauling Key both cost 1.
Yeah, I don't think we'll play Chase the Tail unless our tiger swipe hits. So I think we're always just playing this tiger swipe.
And then, depending on how they've blocked up to this point, we could receive 2 tigers based on its effect, or we could just get nothing.
If we hit and we get the 2 tigers, we can use this Chase the Tail really well. If we don't, we can just play the Mauling Chi. Either way, we have a really good play here.
So sending the crouching tiger if we are able to make it hit. And I mean, if we're thinking about it, we have a spinning wheel kick for 5. We had a aspect of tiger body for 4, so we're up to 9. Crouching tiger for 1, a breed anger for 5. I mean, we pushed so much damage already that there's a chance that they could have given the 4 cards or maybe pieces of equipment to this point. So there's a chance that because we didn't reveal tiger swipe that isn't known knowledge, not played around in that respect. So we could conceivably have this line where we get a tiger, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, there's a lot of these decks that are playing no block cards now, like all the Mystic Heroes with their Chi, Prism with Figments, so on and so forth.
So we send that, and then where do you want to go from here? You want to go chase the tail?
Let's just do this Chase the Tail, do the biggest turn we can since we're here.
Chase the tail means we have to pitch Mauling Key, but it's going to come in for 5 with go again, and it's going to give the buff on the final tiger that we have, which is pretty big at 4. Seems good.
Yeah, it's really strong. A lot of people at first will start to go, oh, I have a bunch of red cards. This turn seems really bad. But if you're using 2 red cards to do 8 damage like this Chase the Tail was on its front 5 and the 3 on the back, that's a 2 cards used for 8 damage. That's insanely good.
Yeah,
when
Chase
we're playing
the Tail.
Flesh and Blood.
Man, Chase the Tail is one of those cards, even on innocuous turns that I've played against Zen, they have just been like, attack here, attack there. It's pretty punchless overall. And then they go Chase the Tail into a 4 tiger. And I'm like, that sucks. It just does not feel good.
No, they're so strong.
I don't know what's the total damage. I'll put it on the screen at this point because I can't be bothered to count. I'll let the computer count or someone at home can count.
Yeah, I think we pushed over 30 that turn.
Seems like it. All right, so but after a turn like that, there's a lot of decks that would be like, okay, now I've done everything that I could do, like this big attack, this big moment. Let's take a look at a turn after the combo turn. How would you play this 4-card hand?
So I think this 4-card hand looks really simple to play at the surface. I think the Tiger Swipe, we're going to look to arsenal it. And then the other 3 cards in our hand are going to be play this Tiger Form Incantation and then play this Chi Unleashed.
This actually feels like a good use case of Ki Unleashed finally, which is kind of interesting. So Tiger Form pitching blue, yeah?
Yep.
That gets us the Crouching Tiger.
Yep, and we're just going to play it for 3.
Play for 3, and then send the Ki Unleashed for 7. Just a simple 3-card 10.
Yep, there's another line here that does the same amount of damage, which maybe pushes 1 extra. So you can do the same thing of starting with the Tiger Form Incantation. You swing the Staff first for 2. Then it swings the Tiger for 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can Tiger Swipe, which swings for 5. It pushes 1 extra damage, but then you're putting this Chi Unleashed in your arsenal, which is a 2-drop. That might be a bit harder to play in the future.
Yeah, I could see that as well. But the fact that we're able to play that same sort of sequence with the same amount of cards and push a lot of damage on a turn where we've almost assuredly, previous to this, taken the entire hand, right? Feels pretty solid.
Yeah, this line, I think most people will default to the second line here that we just did.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't play that line personally because saving this Tiger Swipe for a future Art of War or a future Ancestral Harmony can be really strong. Getting several Tigers that are +1 from an Art of War, like what we just drew, really strong.
All right, let's play one more hand then. Let's have a little bit more fun. So,
Yeah,
do you ever want to block here?
We never really want to block into raw damage. If this had an on hit, we could throw our armor at it, but this is the practice dummy. There's no on hits here.
That's right. Never block.
This is like KO. It's just damage.
The ninja way. Okay, talk me through how you want to play this one out.
All right, we've got our Art of War. We have a blue card. Let's just get at that.
Okay. Same modes.
Yep, same modes almost always. I think here though, if we look in our graveyard, we still have barely played any Bonds of Ancestries and any Descendant Gust Waves. So I think we should try and hold that Descendant Gust Wave. Okay. And while Chase the Tail's powerful, let's just get it out of here. We don't have any Tigers.
Sounds good.
We hit a Bonds.
There you go.
This is shaping up to be one of the strongest turns this deck can do. So we can start with the Descendant Gust Wave.
Sure.
And then after this, we're playing the Bonds.
Sounds good.
And then this can search any of these 1-drops that can do some crazy things, like Breed Anger.
Okay. You want to take Breed Anger?
Yeah, Breed Anger is better than spinning Wheel Kick here since we're on Art of War. All the Tigers that we make are +1.
Sounds good. So we're going to banish there, grab 1.
Yep. Now we need to play the Aspect first.
Yep.
Since we need to make a Tiger to start doing the things with the other cards.
Sounds good. We make a Tiger off this. We get it +1, so it's 4 with Go Again. I've heard 4 with Go Again's pretty good.
Yep. Now we get to play the Crouching Tiger here.
For 1, and then Breed Anger?
Yep, Breed Anger, because this will make a second Tiger for the upcoming Tiger Swipe.
We go Crouching Tiger for 2. This time it gets the Shuko buff. And finally, we end on Tiger Swipe for 5.
Yep.
And of course, if that hits, we get a couple more Tigers, which is very cool, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's one of those decks that there are intricacies to the lines. I would say it's a little bit more intricate than something like a KO, but it can push a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, in this turn, we went 4 damage into 5 damage into 4 damage into 1 into 5 into 2 into 5 into 1 into 1. That's like 28 damage. That's a lot on 5 cards.
That's more than 12, which is most
likely
what the hand is blocking 4 across from us, which is an important thing to make. Like, let's just do this. If we just hit concede, you can see the amount of damage we pushed on that turn was 28. The previous pop-off turn was 32 damage. I mean, when you're doing this right here, 10 into 32 into 10 into 28, on what I would argue is fairly easy, just drawn up hands. Like, you could see why this deck is one of the decks to beat in the format, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I mean, you see right there, the last stat at the top, average value per turn, 23.33. That is so much value out of your cards, where most decks aren't getting anywhere close to that.
Yeah, that is that's pretty solid. That is indeed pretty solid.